Yes, guys, I actually watched The Village, not The Visit or The Omen or The Signs, whatever. I watched what we were supposed to watch for this week, and I'm very excited to discuss this film with you guys.
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie.
And Nikisha.
Where we share our love for all things scary and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Well, welcome everyone. Today is a great day because we, yes, Jamie gave us a late little today we're talking about the 2004 period thriller film, The Village. Yes, guys, I actually watched The Village, not The Visit or The Omen or The Signs, whatever. I watched what we were supposed to watch for this week, and I'm very excited to discuss this film with you guys. For context, go back and listen to The Visit if you have not, so that you can know what I'm talking about right now. But we're talking about a village, a tiny little village, provincial village. This film was written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. I don't know. I'm on one today. Sorry, guys. But not sorry. So The Village was written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. We are in the middle of my Shyamalana Fest, watching all things M. Night, because that is something that is a hole in my canon of horror movies. And so I'm excited to be watching these with my podcast peeps and discussing it. So this movie stars Bryce Dallas Howard, Joaquin Phoenix, Adrian Brody, William Hurt, Sigourney Weaver, and Brendan Gleeson. A very stacked cast.
Yeah.
Stacked.
And we had some two Cabin in the Woods people, Sigourney Weaver and Franz Kranz, and then we had a young Jesse Jesse
Williams.
Jesse. What's Eisenberg? What's his name?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He was in it.
Oh right. Yes, he's one of the kids.
Yeah, Michael Pitt was in this as well. Something wild. Michael Pitt from Boardwalk Empire was the one who turns
I
back.
couldn't remember that guy's name.
Yeah,
the one who was up in the tower.
Mm.
When he sees
gotcha.
the thing go by.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then what's her? Cherry Jones, Judy Greer.
Oh,
Jane
Judy Greer, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man. And then of course we'll talk about it in his greatest performance yet, M. Night Shyamalan.
So obviously heavy spoilers for The Village. And Jamie, walk us through those trigger warnings, please.
Let's see. I mean, I would say the biggest trigger warning is Adrian Brody playing somebody who has a cognitive disability.
Yeah.
You can't I feel like that's a big old flag to mention.
A big old red bad color flag.
Yeah,
bad color.
Bad color.
So just starting with that, because it's very problematic. This movie's PG-13, I believe.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So there's in terms of gross things, we do see some blood, we see some stabbing, mostly animals that are being killed and slaughtered, and you see their carcasses, unfortunately. I think
And the stabbies.
Yeah, the stabbies. Just disturbing creature imagery. They look like giant evil porcupines with hog faces. It kind of reminds me of the Saw mask, the pig
Yeah.
mask.
Yes.
Totally.
That's what I think of when I have like seen this movie and
Yeah.
the outfit thing.
Little red sawing hood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Red sawing it. That's great. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, also another thing that's not, I mean, there's just like a lot of like people like playing characters with disabilities that it's like, because I mean, also Bryce Dallas Howard is blind in this movie.
Mhm.
Right.
It's just like, I'm just always curious. What do
Yeah.
we think about that?
Mm-hmm.
That feels
You
like it
mentioned-
needs to be said.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. It definitely needs to be mentioned. And you talking about Adrian Brody just reminded me of Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, and Gilbert
What's
Grape.
eating Gilbert Grape?
Yes.
I've
Do you
never
know I was
actually
about to
seen
say
that movie.
Grapes of Wrath?
Grapes of Wrath. I mean, what this actually reminds me of, always and forever, I will now think of Tropic Thunder.
Oh my God. Yes.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the Oscars.
Well, it's like meta. They actually like talk about it.
Well, that's why. That's why I
Exactly.
think of it, because he's like, you got to go full, or like Sean Penn and like all that, and like it's a meta commentary on how insane
Sure.
the movie industry
but
is
also
for
like
doing that.
using the R word and like fully showing
Yes.
it, where it's like, is that like taking it too far? I think that the meta like commentary on it is actually really interesting
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
you know, we continue to see it to this day, and it's
Yeah.
not, it's like all kind, like that you can make this argument about all kinds of things. I think like one of the more recent ones is around like, man, Hollywood loves fat suits for some reason,
Yeah.
but doesn't
Mhm.
love fat people. So it's like, it's never going to put fat people in roles. It's just going to put people in fat suits, and like, it's all
Mhm.
about like the transformation.
Yeah,
And like, I
totally.
just think that that's so wild that like
Yeah.
it's 2024 and like this is continues to be where we are, or like other prosthetics where it's like why we gotta make that nose so big? What's going on there? What are you trying to say?
Mhm.
It's like
That's
all
exactly what I
that
thought.
stuff. Like
Yes.
I feel like there's plenty of talented people who also probably like represent these different identities and communities that you're trying to portray.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on here?
Why? Yeah. That has been a side parlor talk that I think is very important.
Come, sit, have a drink. It's parlor talk.
But
Yeah.
I'm loving
I
everything you're
you
saying.
can't. I just feel like you can't not think about it every time any movie
on
comes
screen.
out, where it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's just I find it really distracting and frustrating.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because it's just a fine line between hiring an actor who can do something and hiring somebody who is that person, like who has some of
Mhm.
those qualities. I'm not saying I'm on the other way, but what I am saying is that it's just always an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
In terms of like what casting directors go through and think of how you write a script and who you imagine in those specific parts. Like it's a very interesting and worthwhile conversation to be having for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. To your point too, Brian, it's the writing of it all, and who are you thinking about when you're writing a character, and like, is this necessary for the plot or the message that you're trying to convey in this story, specifically with this movie too. It's like,
Mhm.
is there other ways that we could have gotten around this and you still gotten the point across that you wanted to get across, however many points there were you were
Sure.
trying to put in this movie?
Mhm.
But yes. So with that, producer Brian, please give us some words and we will get into it.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Hi, YouTube. We're on YouTube if you're listening to us. If you're on YouTube, hello. You can also find us on all social media at Talk Horror Pod. You can find us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Follow us there. We really appreciate it. Yeah, today we're talking the village talk.
All that village talk. Oh, I forgot to tell y'all in the last podcast that I started watching What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, the TV show, I'm assuming.
The TV show, yes.
Yes.
And I'm absolutely dying. I am obsessed with everything about it. It's my vibe. I didn't realize it was mockumentary style filming.
Oh,
so
interesting.
I didn't know anything about it except it was vampires. And
have you seen the movie?
No, I haven't.
So my suggestion would be stop, watch
Okay.
the movie, and then continue on, because you
Okay.
do not need the movie. Obviously, you're enjoying it. You do not need the movie to understand. It doesn't cover much of the same ground at all.
Mhm.
But I do think there are moments in like season 2 and 3 that would be enhanced by having watched the movie.
Got it. Okay, will do.
I still haven't
add
watched
it
the
to
movie,
list.
if that makes you feel better.
Yes.
But you've watched the whole series.
Yeah,
Oh,
basically.
we should do the movie for this. What are we're like talking about you should watch the movie. 2 of you haven't seen it. We should watch the movie.
Oopsie.
Great.
That's a great idea.
Let's do it.
problem
Jamie
solved.
coming
Yeah.
in with the good
We
ideas. We'll
did
put it on our calendar.
it.
Yeah.
Yes. Have you guys watched anything this week?
I don't know. Just The Village.
Yeah.
And only The Village. We didn't even watch The Visit.
Oh, right.
Um,
Yes. Well, I also think it's
feel like
worth
we watched
mentioning.
something, but
Did
now
we?
I can't remember anything.
I don't think we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning that our producer Brian is a part of an amazing writing for music class, and
Woo!
he just got done finishing up a 10-minute musical called Seance, which was super fun to witness and be a part of. But in our spooky world that we're in on the podcast, I thought it was worth mentioning that our producer Brian is up here doing his thing, writing musicals, keeping it scary for all of us to enjoy, and it was a great time. So it's on
Thank you.
YouTube too. Where can
It's
they find
on
it
YouTube.
on the
You
YouTube?
can find it on my YouTube. I'll post it on our social media.
Yeah.
You can find that. And Nikisha was in it, and she sounded amazing.
Yay.
So that was cool
Woohoo.
too.
Yeah.
And yeah. Oh, and I thought, thank you for shouting that out. But Jamie, you're totally 100% right. You watched E.T. for the first time.
Oh, that is what it was. I was like, we
What?
watched something and I couldn't remember. Yeah, I had never, ever seen E.T. before.
How'd you feel?
And let me tell you, this movie is a wild ride.
Yeah.
On a bicycle.
Like there's so
On a
much
bike.
going on. Yeah. There's so much going on. It feels like 5 different movies, honestly.
Mhm.
Because the beginning is like the horror stuff. Then you have like this, friendship bonding, like family moment. Then you have like the adventurous, like 80s boys escaping. Like there's like, it's just like a lot of different tones. Oh, then it's like deeply sad. And even though I'd never seen this movie, but like I have seen the iconic, like image of them all flying, like I still
Yeah.
cried. But then I was
Oh,
like, I don't know if I
yes.
enjoyed this movie, but like that image is just like already in my brain. So I don't know. It was wild.
Love it. How long is that movie? I forgot how.
It's like 2 hours.
It was long.
Okay.
It felt long.
Yeah.
I got really sleepy in the middle part. It kind of gets
Oh.
sleepy.
Yeah. Yeah. Every time I think of E.T., I just think bringing it back to Bob's Burgers because they just cover the masses. There's an episode called OT, and it was called Outside Toilet.
Oh, that's
And-
a great episode.
It's a great episode.
Yeah.
Because Gene finds a toilet outside, and someone is trying to steal it from him because it's an expensive
It's
talking
like an
toilet.
AI toilet. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man, great. That's a great episode.
Yes.
I just want to
so
say
good.
I love ET, but I also have
Yeah.
a ton of nostalgia for it, like a lot of people do.
Right. So that helps you enjoy it more. How was it
Oh,
the
yeah.
second time watching it through?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, ET?
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen it 1,000 times.
Oh, okay. Great.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah, it was great. I enjoyed this.
1,000.
I've seen it 1,000 times. No,
Yes.
this time was really fun because I really, really enjoy not just watching movies with Jamie, but I really enjoy watching movies that I've seen and she hasn't seen, and vice versa. That's a
Yeah.
lot of fun for me. Like when we were watching a lot of the rom-coms that I had never seen during lockdown, I enjoyed them because I love rom-coms. These are just ones that happen to slip through for me, but I love giving her the enjoyment of me watching them for the first time and like really digging them.
That's the best. I was gonna ask, are y'all like watching the person watch the movie every time?
Like,
I don't
sometimes.
I don't I feel that and correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie. We really watch the movie. We don't watch the other person watch the movie.
I have only one example, or not example, but one experience of you definitely watching my reaction to watching a movie.
What was it?
Monster Squad.
Oh,
My first watch of Monster Squad, I like felt your gaze on me as I was like taking this movie in, and just like,
because
what a film.
when he reveals himself to be the Holocaust survivor, I was like, what is Jamie gonna think of this? And then when Dracula says, give me the amulet, you bitch,
that's
like,
the best part of the whole movie. That's
Best.
the best, absolute best part of the whole movie.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh my gosh. And then when Frankenstein throws back when Phoebe throws the stuffed animal to Frankenstein, he's like, Phoebe. Oh my gosh. Fucking
Yes.
great. This movie magic. I cry every time. Oh man, I love it.
Go back and listen to our episode of Monster Squad.
Yeah, where I enjoy the hell out of it. And they're like, oh, this was a film that you enjoyed when you were a child.
That's exactly it. Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, we are talking about The Village today, and so we're going to get our wonderful 2-minute plot summary of this from producer Brian. So Jimmy will set it up, and we will hear that plot.
Setting it up for the plot. All right.
Set it and forget it.
What's the plot?
Producer Brian, you have 2 minutes on the clock. That is you to tell us everything about M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. Are you ready?
I don't know.
Okay. Ready, steady, go.
All right, so The Village takes place at the turn of the century. It's this little town in the middle of the woods, and we find out that surrounding the town are these monsters, and they are not supposed to cross into the woods, and if they respect that, the monsters will not cross over their side. The monsters are attracted to the color red, so it is the bad color, and they keep all red outside of the village, and inside of the village, the good color is yellow, so there's a lot of yellow, a lot of brightness, and all of that. Our main character is played by William Hurt. He is the father of 2 women. One of them is played by Bryce Dallas Howard, who is blind. There's also someone played by Adrian Brody in The Village who has a cognitive disability, and everybody really just kind of follows all of the rules. However, we find out that the young Bryce Dallas Howard wants to marry Joaquin Phoenix, who's another person in the village, and then Joaquin Phoenix accepts, but the Adrian Brody character is jealous. He stabs the Joaquin Phoenix character, and there's a lot of other stuff that happens in terms of like requesting to go to the next town, a lot of curiosity. The monsters attack one night because someone crossed into the forest, which is Joaquin Phoenix. Anyway, the council finally decides that they're going to let the blind girl, Bryce Dallas Howard, go into the next town and get the meds for this. This is totally against what they stand for, but they're going to let her do it. She does. She gets there, and we find out the twist is that this village is actually in modern day. And there's so much PTSD from the violence in the world that these people in a support group decided to create this village and not tell anybody. And then she comes back with the meds, and she is meant to keep the secret as well. The end.
Excellent.
Good job.
That's the plot.
Forgot about all the violence references. Like the first times I've seen this movie.
Oh, yeah. So talking like when they talk about what happened to them in a past life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is wild. So let's get into it with our first segment of likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
So this is my first time seeing it, but just curious, how many times have you guys seen this movie? Is this the second time around? What is it?
This is my 4th time.
Oh, okay. Jamie?
Maybe my 3rd-ish. I honestly can't remember.
Okay. And you guys did
Especially
not
'cause
see
it
this in
came out-
theaters?
I did.
Oh, fantastic.
2004.
I'll tell you when.
Yes. Love
No,
it.
because I was in high school, right? 2004.
Yeah, we were in high school in 2004.
Yeah, and I was
freshmen.
still a big baby, so I think I would not have seen this yet.
Yeah. I have never even seen a commercial for this. I do not know this movie, never saw anything, heard anything about it at all until I watched it for the first time. Did you find it, Brian?
Yeah, I saw this at 11 p.m. Whoa, what a wild man
Scary.
I was. On Saturday, the 31st of July in 2004, in the big theater. It cost me $9.50 in New Jersey.
What a deal.
How dare they do this to us?
Yeah, a couple days beforehand, I saw The Door on the Floor, and a couple days later, I saw Collateral, and a week later, I saw Garden State for the first time.
Oh, wow, life-changing movie.
And then Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah,
life-changing in a different way.
Exactly. Vote for Pedro. Fantastic. Well, yeah, this is my first time watching this, and so when I don't know anything about a movie, I don't even like to really look up who's in it or whatever. I'll do all of that in prep for the podcast after I watched it. So just watching it for the first time, the first thing was just seeing all of the stacked cast in this was just really wild to experience, that all of these people were together to create this movie. My thesis statement for my likes and gripes is that I really dig the concept. I just thought that there was a lot going on and I could not pinpoint exactly what to focus on and what the movie was really trying to say, aside from just having a big twist at the end, which I did enjoy.
Did you guess it?
I did.
Oh, interesting.
And I'll tell you, it's because the minute that Joaquin Phoenix makes his first appearance, it looked like he had modern jeans on. And it was so different than what everyone else had on that I was just thinking in my head, either there's something wrong with the wardrobe or there is some type of twist. Maybe, and what I initially thought was that maybe Joaquin Phoenix was coming from the outside into this community. And even though the tombstone lists when the son dies that it's like in the late 1800s, I still was like, something is amiss. But it was Joaquin Phoenix jeans that he had.
That's so
on.
funny.
Wait, you know what I was I have a specific point before I derail the conversation. But do you know about like iPhone face? Have you heard about that term before?
That term sounds familiar, but I don't know what it is.
So apparently it's like that same kind of, I guess this gave it away with wardrobe, but it's more about how people currently look in movies that like aren't supposed to be set in they're supposed to be set in like the past, but like because of the way that people look now, it's a lot harder. They call it iPhone face, where it's like it's harder to place that person in that world in that time frame because they don't actually look like they belong during that time.
Just with their natural features, like
just something about like how someone's presenting, where like it just doesn't. It looks like they know what an iPhone is essentially, and like that kind of makes it harder to like engage in like buying into it, which I think is really interesting.
Totally, because there are so many movies that I watch that are in a specific time frame, a specific period piece, and like their Botox lips are plumped up, they clearly had plastic surgery, and it's very hard to believe like these actors or actresses are actually in 20th century, like 16th century England and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's why people like Keira Knightley are always cast in those movies, because they don't have iPhone face, at least at that point in her career, when you have like Pirates of the Caribbean and Anna Karenina and stuff like that.
Pride and Prejudice, babe, the best one.
Right, duh. Oh, you mean the obvious one? Yeah,
But yeah, I just thought that made me think of that, because I was thinking about it. I heard it like on a podcast I was listening to this week, and I was like, oh, I've heard of that before, but I didn't quite know what that was. And like, especially something like this where it's such a stacked cast. And like curious if that is distracting also.
You know, in you saying that, Bryce, to me, she looked very much out of place. Uh,
Mm.
And I think it was more just so how her hair was. And you know what that also reminds me of? In the 90s, when any movie that was filmed in the 90s but was about an earlier time period, the eyebrows always give it away because they have the thin
Oh my
90s
God.
eyebrows.
Overplucked brows.
Overplucked
Oof.
brows. And so there's nothing that can let me know that they are, or let me believe that they are in like the 1800s because of those eyebrows, man. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, so even when we get to the end of it, it was still, you know, a nice shock that there is a village outside of here. So me kind of guessing it didn't take away from my movie experience.
Okay.
What really took away was just there were so many characters, and maybe because it was such a stacked cast, I didn't know who I was supposed to be following and what their story was, because what Judy Greer coming out of the blue with that confession to Joaquin Phoenix, I was just like, what is this? Why is this happening? And then when Joaquin gets stabbed, I'm like, is he just about to die right now in this movie? It seems like he was the one that we were supposed to follow. Like he was going to be the one that was going into the woods for whatever reason to discover whatever. And then that isn't the case. Yeah. So it was just a hat on a hat on a hat situation for me. The title card, the first thing that I wrote was, what in the Blair Witch is going on here with this title? Because it sets it up that it's going to be more horror than what it is. It's just like a thriller mystery. So I just thought that the title cards, everything was kind of out of place. I was a little confused if Bryce and Adrian Brody were related until he gets stabbed at the end, and I think it's because Adrian was in Bryce's house so much that I thought that he was a part of the family, and they don't really, you know, say a lot either way. So that just kind of confused me a bit until the end. My favorite quote was, "You run like a boy," and she says, "Thank you." I'm like, absolutely. Understand about the red stuff and the colors, totally get it. Yeah, I'm trying to say something that I haven't already said, but it was just a lot. All of my questions were like, why does Joaquin want to go into the forest so bad? Like, I don't understand his like full purpose in it. It was just kind of like, I just want to do this just to do it, and not necessarily there is a reason to do it. I will say, even though those things look like porcupines, I dug the creatures' costumes for the movie. I thought it was effective because at first I didn't think that we would even see the creatures. And I also thought that the creatures would be like people from the outside town, just actual people just like terrorizing, you know. So to have an actual creature, I really did like. Having Noah in the suit, that was confusing to me because I was like, how did he know about the porcupine suits in the first place? And then how did he get into the shed to then run into the woods and scare Bryce's character? That just didn't, 2 and 2 wasn't 4 there for me. Yeah.
Jamie asked the same question, like, when does he find out?
Yeah.
And I don't know when he finds out, but I think he finds out before this movie starts, because all the skinned animals are him. And when they and one of the during the wedding when they invade, that's him.
Okay.
And I don't think he gets into the shed. I think because they talk about him being in the like bad room because he hits people and gets into fights. I think he found the costume, the extra one, underneath the floorboards, and he was doing all of that because the elders were questioning at one point, like, who's skinning these animals, like one of us is doing it. So I think Adrian Brody always knew, the Noah character knew before the movie started, which is why he wasn't afraid to like go into the woods, because but he wasn't telling anyone, and that's why he gets really excited when the elders are doing the raid as the monsters, because he's like, he knows it's like a show essentially, but doesn't share that information with other people.
Okay. I mean, that's absolutely believable, and I
Again,
understand that. It's
fourth
like,
time watching it, and I didn't even question it until Jamie's like, "Does this make sense?" I'm like, "Oh, good point."
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Glad that Jamie we
But
were
there
on the same page.
but there is continuity to that, I think.
Got it. Okay. I also was just thinking, you guys are just, you could go and get medicine at any point, these elders, but they're sending Bryce to go for some reason. And it's just so hard for me to kind of put that together, because why are you sending her out? Anyone else could, because you know that it's safe, could go out there. I know that there's a fear because of the trauma and things that have happened there, but it's like, how are you guys getting medicine or anything like at all? Are you really just having everything confined to this village? And there was a moment with the guards blocking the, entrance way to the road, and they were saying, yeah, there's a people come around and ask questions, and there's some conspiracy that the government was paid off to not fly above this area and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, okay, y'all had all this money. Like, how, I want to know how this village works, because like y'all had all this money to essentially like be private, have nobody fly over you, literally be in a zone where no one can find you. And it's just like, you're doing all of this work for this thing, and then you're just gonna like let Bryce go out and get all this. Like, that just didn't make sense to me. I don't know, but that was the last thing where I was like, this is kind of insane. I understand your reasoning from wanting to make this village, but like all the mechanics of it just don't make sense to me. So yeah, again, last thing, I understand the concept, but it was just so much going on, hat on a hat on a hat, and the reasoning behind things, it just didn't make sense to me. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Who would like to go next?
Jamie, you go next.
Okay. So I don't remember how many times I've seen this movie. I know that the first time I saw it, I was really scared, but like I definitely watched this. It's, you know what? I think that some of the earlier M. Night movies have this effect of like, I go into it really scared the first time I see it. I'm also much younger. And then upon a rewatch, it has like a very different impact on me. So like this time around, not scared. I also think that a lot is lost once you know what the twist is in this particular movie. Unlike Sixth Sense, where like that movie is just like way more dramatic and intense and like deeply sad.
Yes.
But like that's not lost with the twist being revealed. It's like a shocking twist, but also like there's just so much other stuff going on, and the characters are so well developed that like the emotional weight of it still really lands. And this, I feel like, less so. And I think maybe part of it is kind of what Nikisha's talking about, where like there's just like a lot going on for whatever reason. So it's like, because they have like these two main threads, it's like this place is sus, and then you have a creepy monster. Like those are like the two main things that I feel like are going on. It's like the way that people are talking here is kind of strange. I don't know why they're talking like this. It's not like fully 19th century-ish. And they really get you with like the first shot in the movie where you see the dad crying over the casket, and they pan out to a headstone with a time frame on it. So it's like they're planting the seed to make you think that that's the time frame. So I'm like, tricky. I see what you're doing here. If you've never seen this movie. So, but going into it now, it's like, oh, that's how they get you. Like that's the trick. And then you kind of just like take what they're presenting, but like it doesn't all quite make sense. This place is just like a weird place.
It's just a weird place.
It's just a weird place. And then you have like the reference to like the bad color, which I also kind of feel like they're doing too much. Like in the very beginning, when like the two women are like sweeping on the porch and dancing, and then they like find the flower and they like full on stop, yoink it out of the ground, run away from the house, dig a hole, and bury the flower, which later they explain that you're supposed to bury the bad color. But like, what, like, just such a strange introduction to everything that's happening.
So the bearing of the flower at the beginning is easily on my gripes list because it feels so choreographed. Like the hole has already been dug. Like this is where you have to hit your mark. This is where it feels very inorganic and unnatural. And I understand what it's trying to do, but it actually takes me out of the world so quickly. Like
it's so
quickly.
silly. Their dancing is so silly, and then after the whole and then they're like walking
Like
back
brooms.
all like solemn and like scared, like, oh man, that was a close one, good thing we buried it in time.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what?
It's like extras.
You do, like, yes, you get so much from that scene.
Watermelon.
You get so much from that scene, but it's also so fucking silly that I'm just like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Oh my god. So, and then you have Joaquin Phoenix playing like this weird stoic, like just strange guy. I don't really get him at all. I do really like Bryce Dallas Howard. No, I really like who was I trying to say? Judy Greer. When Judy Greer is like, I love this man, but I haven't spoken to him. So I just want your permission before I go talk to him. And then goes up to him and is like, let's shout our love from the rooftops. We're deeply in love. It's hot love. So like, let's just go.
What kind of love is it?
It's hot love. And then immediately the next scene, we cut to her sobbing in the bed with Bryce Dallas Howard comforting her. Like
Great
that whole
moment.
sequence was excellent. I loved that. Again, like that's like a fun way to kind of set expectations of this time frame where it's like, oh, like, you know, you have to ask like the elders permission to do certain things and blah blah blah. That made more sense as opposed to like the grouping of the elders when Joaquin Phoenix goes and is like, I'd like to leave the town, and then they deny him. Also, like, man, his mom in this, Sigourney Weaver, just like keeps getting like the short end of the stick where he's like doing all these things without telling her. And I was like, man, you're really making your mom, who's one of the elders, look really bad when you're like, I didn't talk to my mom about this, but I'm here making a request.
And I went to the woods and didn't tell her.
I know.
And now she's finding out in the meeting.
Stop. Like, shut up.
Yeah. Oh man.
Then another thing that I find weird is like the locked boxes. Woo!
Yeah, oh my
just
god.
Another extra weird thing that they like. There's just so much weird extra things. I'm like, this is when I said previously on M. Night Shyamalan-a-thon, that I think that he has good concepts, but really struggles with the execution, especially when he writes these things, like the whole thing. This is I think that this movie has a really interesting idea. I do not think that it's well executed. This is not one of my like tops for M. Night. I just think there's so many problems, and then I think there are things that are problematic, but like I think there's just too many problems with like all of this stuff that's happening. It just feels really clunky and overwhelming and like shoving a lot of stuff into this movie. And it's like, I think that the monster is a distraction from the twist. And it's like, kind of pick one or the other, maybe lean into like the weirdness of the town more without needing to use this like weird monster thing. And like, there still could be like other scary elements, or lean fully into like it being a monster thing, but it's not really monsters. Like, I just feel like there's these two things are both really big things that like then kind of leaves me with more like questions, and also just like, again, it feels super clunky, that I feel like could have been, I don't know. I think it could have been better if he kind of like went one way or went the other way. I also think it's problematic because he's in this movie and delivers one of the worst like exposition dialogues like ever in a movie, and also by him because he does this frequently, and I think that it's deeply annoying. It's like, you don't need to be in your own movie to like did you forget to cast this role? And he was like, I'll step in and I'll just say all the things, I'll answer all the questions that like everybody still has. Like, what? Like, unnecessary. And like but like, I mean, like, yeah, because my question is like, how do you make it a no-fly zone? These people are going to see planes. Like, it's a better movie that explains this, but it's a deeply fucked up movie, is Dogtooth.
No, you stole my suggestion.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
I was like, you want a more fucked up village?
Yeah, I mean, it is a more I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
No, but like
suggestion.
You still get that suggestion. I wasn't even going to say that. But no, but like, talk about like another movie that does actually like address planes, but like it gives an explanation that like works for the context of the thing. The idea that somebody somehow paid off the government to make it a no-fly zone is wild anyway, and then the fact that he says it makes it even wilder.
Yeah, the fact that he said it makes it so much wilder. Yes.
I do think that Bryce Dallas Howard and Judy Greer are like obviously the heart of this movie, and they're both very charming. I think that there's some moments where like Bryce Dallas Howard like really shines as Ivy, and like there's something like she feels like a Shyamalan character. Like kind of similar to the like Swing Away vibe, or even to the Unbreakable vibe with Bruce Willis. Like, there are certain ways that I feel like characters in M. Night's movies are behaving that like feels very much like he's directing them. And like there's a lot of things that I feel like she's doing in this where it's like, I don't even know how to describe it, but it just feels like you can tell he is the one, like he has a vision for what these characters are like, and like, I don't know, I'm gonna have a really hard time like articulating it, but I do feel like she can see his vision and like does a good job without it feeling super clunky. I feel like it's everything else around that like feels really clunky. And then I think that the monster looks silly. I think that, it's like the scene where she finally, where like, it's the things that come full circle. So it's the scene in the beginning where she's like, I wish I could play the game where they stand with their back to the forest and put their arms out and see how long they can last. And then she plays the game with the actual monster, who turns out to be Adrian Brody, and like has her moment where like she did it in real life. And like that feels like an M. Night moment where it's like he's trying to like make some kind of point, and uses his characters like, you know, to reinforce that, and it's like coming full circle. So that's kind of the thing that I was talking about, where it's like, oh, that's cute, like, you know, you had your thing. And, you know, and I liked that.
Sorry, to add on to that in kind of closing points, do you know Bryce's character made such a big deal about the colors, and we didn't even get to know what what's his name's color was at the end. Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh yeah, I think that was a missed opportunity for her at the very end.
At the very
like
end,
when she brings it, to be like, your orange is coming back, or some, even if it's corny as shit. Like,
all right, but you know what? It's stupid. That whole thing is stupid. I didn't even remember that was a plot point until Brian was telling me, and I was like, what are you talking about? And then she starts doing it, and I was like, I literally don't remember any of this. It's just another thing that they like add, but then they don't do anything with. And then like exactly what you said, like, and then it just falls off, and it's like, what was the point of that?
Why?
And here's a question. Here's a question. I'm gonna break it. So if she could see auras and like color auras of people, and she, assuming that she spent so much time with Adrian Brody's character and could see his aura, then how did she not know that he was the monster?
That's an excellent point.
Great question.
Like, it's not like the monster suit suddenly like
shields,
cloaks his. Yeah.
I agree. I think that the color aura thing is just is such an unnecessary plot point to all of this. I totally agree with you.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's just another thing.
Right.
And yeah, is there anything else that annoyed me about this movie? It uh no, I mean, there's not that much else. There's
I
not
mean,
that
that's
much
pretty
else to say
much.
other than I definitely think Adrian Brody's entire like character in this movie is like deeply deeply uncomfortable to watch. Like I hated watching it.
Mm,
Yeah, and like from the get-go it's just like, oh, now I have to sit through 108 minutes of that.
yeah. It was very very hard to watch.
Yeah.
Also, even with Bryce being able to like see colors, there were some moments where she was running around not really using her cane, like when she was playing hide and seek, and I was like, how do
Yeah.
you know where you're going? You're not using anything to
The
help
color. No, because she was
you.
counting. And they do allude to that, but also it's like kind of like far into the movie where it's like suddenly they reveal that she like can count, like she's counted the distance between like her house and
Hmm.
Joaquin Phoenix's house and like blah blah blah. So like she can get around the village, but like she randomly does that and it's like, oh, that would have been more helpful than the colors thing.
Well, exactly, because at the very beginning when she's playing hide or she's racing Adrian Brody's
Mm-hmm.
character like to wherever Joaquin was,
Yeah, the
she just
barn
like
or
goes.
something.
Like,
Yeah.
how do you know where to go? Okay, cool.
The colors or the counting
It's not that
or
big of a village. She probably ran it a million times.
Yeah, that's true.
Not that
But
I'm defending those choices.
yes. Fantastic. All right, Brian, do you want to go?
Sure, I like this movie a lot more than you two do, but I agree with most of what you're saying. I like this movie for the big mess that it is, and I like it for the big swings that it takes. Um, I I actually think this would work really well as a play.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
I see
this
that.
already is kind of theatrical in that a lot of the shots are done in one take, like conversations, and there's very little editing in places. Roger Deakins did an amazing job with the cinematography, and also think that James Newton Howard's score to this movie is absolutely spectacular. Um, I Something else I like. I agree with you. I think there's too much plot in this movie. I think that Adrian Brody's character could have been a troubled teen.
Yeah.
I just think that it was lazy writing to make him the way that he was, than to actually build out a character that's a little bit more complex. I just think it was too easy the way that they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, it made his parents come off as awful. The two
Yeah.
elders who were his
Yeah.
parents, who just like did not.
I just don't know what they were doing for like most of this movie.
Yeah,
They just were not around. Yeah.
Yeah. It was weird.
it was very
Mhm.
weird. I think the acting in this is excellent, especially because a lot of this dialogue is not great, Bob. But I think the difference is, take a look at Joaquin Phoenix's monologue about like, I will dance with you on our wedding day. That whole monologue is insanely poorly written. And but I think Joaquin Phoenix does an outstanding job of making it work.
Yes, I
Like
agree.
really well. Whereas, even though it's more emotionally based, whereas I actually think there are a lot of awful moments in M. Night Shyamalan movies. I actually think his exposition drop, where he does it like Jamie mentioned with the newspaper, is a top 3 worst moments in an M. Night Shyamalan movie. I actually think that moment undercuts this movie and derails it, because he's like, well, I don't want to have to explain to the kids like how this happened and this happened and this happened, list. I don't want to do this. I'm just like, what are we doing here? There
Yeah.
are so many better ways of doing this. I just think a lot, he's self-serious. To me, this movie is the one that teeters on people falling out of love with his self-seriousness, which is why I think The Visit people really attached to, because it wasn't like this one, and then Lady in the Water, and then The Happening, and even Signs and stuff like that. Like these movies take themselves very seriously.
Mm.
I some things that really do work for me in this, and again, as I mentioned, there's just too much happening. Like for instance, I understand the thematic reasons and the symbolism for William Hurt's character to never really be with Sigourney Weaver's character. I get it. It's symbolic of them denying themselves something because they don't know if they can handle it. The PTSD of everything, the disappointment. Like I get why that's happening. Like we're supposed to see the differences between these elders not being afraid and not moving forward with what they most desire, and this younger generation wanting to go out and kind of living by the impulses that a young person would have that has been closed off, that it's inevitable that they would want to see beyond the boundaries. Like I think that all totally works for me. I just think we spend a little bit too much time with certain aspects of that. I think there could be hints of those around. We don't need full scenes where like, can you want to dance with me? Oh, no, thank you. I know it touches another woman and whatnot, because like we didn't need all of that, even though I think it's beautifully acted and I understand what it's trying to do thematically and symbolically. Something that really works for me in this movie a lot is that did not work for me as well in 2004 and all the other times I've seen it is I think that this movie hits harder with all of the gun violence in the world right now in the US. I think the moment where they say like prayers and good thoughts, but Bryce Dallas Howard's like, fuck this, I'm gonna do something. Like I and Joaquin Phoenix is like because and Nikisha, to your point earlier, it's not that well built out in this movie. But my understanding is that Joaquin Phoenix's character now wants to go to the other towns for things because he feels like he could have saved that little kid from dying. Like he feels like that to me, that little kid dying is the moment where like Joaquin Phoenix is like, we need to go beyond our borders if we're going to save the people in this town. And I don't think that's not that well done. Again, this is my fourth time watching it. I'm filling in plot points for myself if it's not explicitly stated. I like that the bad color is red, and it's obviously like hits you over the head with like that, but like I like the idea that they're trying to take the blood out of the village. Like don't the violence and all of that, even though the blood is a part of who we are. I think there's some symbolism in there, but I agree with Jamie in that all these ideas are amazing. It's just like kind of a splattering. It's like a Jackson Pollock painting, but it's not as pretty. But I like all of that, and I think the self-seriousness of this works for me, even if a lot of it is super clunky in a lot of places. Yeah, and my dislikes are very similar to the ones that you said. I think it goes on for about 20 minutes too long, this movie. I think that there's just a lot that could have been a lot better about like the way that a lot of those plots were handled. I think you could have cut a lot. I also agree with you, Nikisha. I have a hard time believing that the oath that they took is more important than like him just going and fucking picking up like where he knows where he's going to like save this person. I actually think it would make more sense if he didn't tell the elders and just sent his daughter out and sure. He kind of went behind the elders' back. But then again, I really like the speech that he has where it's like, we're not going to live forever. Somebody else, if we want this to carry on, somebody else has to carry it on. Somebody else has to do this. And if we want like all this to like, it's kind of like, transitioning from the fear of keeping people in to the hope of keeping people in. And, and I think a lot of that works works on paper. But as Jamie said, in execution, it frays a lot at the ends. And I'm more accepting of the logistics of the rules of this and how it actually works for whatever reason than obviously Nikisha was. But like, I think about those things too, but for whatever reason, I'm okay with that. Maybe it's the score that's so good that I'm like, yeah, it's good music.
The score was really good. When you pointed it out and I started paying attention, I was like, oh, Like it really is good, and I think it because it's trying to like immerse you in what you think is happening in that world really well, and like that's
Mhm.
probably the most effective thing aside from the trick in the beginning.
We
Yeah.
used to play this theater game. Oh yeah. Another dislike of mine is the clear misdirection. Like a lot of this movie, I think this movie works better when it is just being and not
Mm.
misdirecting, if that makes sense. Like with like
Yes.
I also think that I think that the language is too over the top and your ear is immediately like something's not right here. I think you
Mhm.
if it was a little bit less like thouest, will thouest go to thy ball with thouest? Like it's
Let's
just
make
like, oh,
haste.
let's make
Yes.
haste.
Let's
Like
make
just say like let's go
haste.
quick. Like I think that I think there's a more of a balance in between the two. But
Mhm.
we used to play this theater game called House. And think of it as, you know, the game like we're going on a picnic and I'm gonna bring some apples, and it's a repetition game. And like you never played like that. So like if we played it now, I'd be like, I'm going on a picnic and I'm gonna bring some apples. And then Nikisha, you would say, I'm going on a picnic and I'm gonna bring some apples and bananas. And then Jamie would do, I'm going on a picnic and I bring some apples, bananas, and cantaloupe. And we go
Got it.
through the whole alphabet until someone can't remember like what someone else said. But
I have played a
House,
version of that. Yes.
yeah.
Got it. Got it.
So House is a more physical version of that. So people line up in a row, and essentially you're creating a fake house. It's invisible. It's mimed. So you're going in. The first person, every person needs to do what the person did before them, but add another action. So what you do is the first person goes, opens the front door, takes off their coat, hangs it up, and then they leave the house. Then the second person goes, they open the door, they take off the jacket, and they hang it up, and then they go to the sink and wash their hands. And anyway,
Mhm.
all like 20 people go. But the reason I bring this up is because you do it to a soundtrack. And so whatever soundtrack is playing kind of informs the tone. So we actually used to do this game a lot to um we used to do this game to the James Newton Howard scores from this and Unbreakable.
Oh, wow.
And so it creates
Interesting.
this like eerie tone. But the point of the game is that to teach you is that everybody has a place in this house, in a stage, in the script, in a musical, in a play. Everyone's part counts because every single time it's inevitable that an action will line up with the music perfectly. If it's the
Mm.
10th person, if it's the 15th person, if it's the second person. But it only happens that way because person one took this amount of time to do it. And person two forgot to do this thing, so it sped things up. And person three took a little bit of extra time washing their hands. And it's actually amazing to be a part of and watch. And I think of this score when I think of that, because I think it's really alive and it's I think the score is better than the movie itself.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to share that because that's what I remember it. But yeah, also like, did it have to be in the 1800s? Like, I get he's a history teacher, but like he could have done it anywhere. I guess that's just a specific choice he made.
Yeah, that's I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I don't
Anyway,
either. Yeah.
and the boxes, like to me, the boxes thing that Jamie mentioned, like works if it's on stage as something symbolic that is always over them. Like that's a cool, like
Yes.
avant-garde. To me, that's a cool avant-garde, like it hangs over the stage the whole time, and as the play goes on, they get lower and lower, and the weight of their past is like, you know, making you more claustrophobic. Versus this, where if the movie is not avant-garde, the box there just feels like a really obnoxious plot point.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
Yeah. Anyway, I still like this movie for whatever reason, even though my likes were much shorter than my gripes. I don't know why. I think I dig the tone.
Which is fair. I mean, especially with the soundtrack. And you know what? I do dig the tone of the time period movie, you know, and but it was just all the other things that like took me out of it. But I really enjoy like spooky movies of this time, and like that's reflective in like what I'd suggest later on. But it's kind of like, if you're going to give me a creeper movie set in the 1800s, like absolutely I'm down, I will be for it.
Yeah.
But it was just some other things that just took me out of it.
Give me, I've said it on TikTok a million times, I'll say it again, give me more horror westerns. Like, because horror movies set in times without technology, where you're just on your own in like isolated places, is good enough for me. Yes. We just need more of that stuff. Like, I need less westerns about like women being abused and more westerns about like, fucking, what if zombies rose up in the Wild West? They're not writing this shit down. No one knows what happened in like, like a small town. Like, don't do Deadwood, do someplace just like a ranch outside of Deadwood. Like what if vampires invaded? In Schmedwood. That's right. Yes. Why don't we ever hear musicals or anything that take place in Schmedwood? Anyway.
Also, cool. Horror musicals. Where are those? Bring them back.
Those are really hard to do. Really hard.
Yeah. But that just reminds me, because isn't there like Abraham Lincoln and the Vampire or something?
Oh yeah, that was bad, right?
I didn't see it, but
great.
Okay.
Yeah, but time period and things, just to put it all together.
Stuff.
Fantastic. Any more likes and gripes? Anyone?
No more bad color, good colors.
Oh my gosh.
Bad color, good color.
Okay, great. Well, let's move on to our next segment, brains.
Brains.
Tasty. Okay, so Jamie, my first question to you is, why do you think that instilling fear are people's like go-to when they want someone to obey the rules or like stay in one spot? And do you think that fear-based protection, quote unquote, can have like an impact on making folks not want to even experience the world because they're so afraid of it? It's so ingrained in them.
That's a great question.
Yay!
Great question.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's this idea, and I think this applies to a lot of things, where like negative consequences are more impactful, influential than positive consequences. And I think that kind of applies to this situation, where it's like, is there a different, perhaps better way to encourage people to want to stay in the village as opposed to scaring them? And like, but I also like, it does make me wonder, kind of taking a step even further back, that the people who created this world are deeply traumatized. And so like, I don't think that they're necessarily even able to think totally clearly about like this idea and how they were going to execute it. But like, it is also kind of ironic that the route that they chose to reinforce this world is rooted in fear, when the things that they experienced were like so traumatic and awful. Like, does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying making sense?
Yeah,
like it's just like like if you were like, you're talking about these horrible things that like your family members and loved ones have endured, and yet you in some ways are continuing to like perpetuate it by reinforcing like these bad things are coming to get you. Or that like something bad is going to happen. It's like, wasn't the whole point of this like social experiment, if you will, to like live in a place that's safe and like loving? And so like, why not root how you keep people and encourage them in that, as opposed to something menacing and bad?
Right.
I don't know. I just like,
no, it's interesting. That's a really good point.
Yeah. But I do think that like, it's kind of like the idea of like punishment versus like positive or negative reinforcement, where it's like the impact of like rewarding good behavior has like is more effective and has more long lasting like impact than adding something bad. So, and that's also not like adding something bad is different from negative reinforcement, where it's like removing something in order to get the behavior that you're looking for. So like true punishment is like doling out something that is bad in order to like encourage or discourage a behavior. But again, like it's, he was a history teacher, I guess,
Yeah.
but like, maybe if he was into social sciences or anthropology or something, he would have realized that like that was a terrible idea.
Actually, now that you're saying all of this, I think that this movie maybe chose some of the wrong themes as well. Like to me, what you're talking about in terms of like their fear informing the fear that they instill in people to gain control, and why as a history teacher, like he should know that history repeats itself, and people like to me that's a really interesting conversation to be having over some of the stuff that this movie presents.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about scores and stuff, that all really informed my scores, because I'm just like, this totally undermines your entire purpose of doing any of this. And it's like I mean, I will also say that like for them having experienced such trauma and then all collectively coming together and making a decision that's like informed by their trauma, that like, oh, I was going to say something really great and then it kind of all fizzled out of my brain as I was saying it.
It'll come back
Just
to
pretend like I said like the best thing ever, and
Bring
you're
it
like,
back.
oh my
Whoa! Oh, fuck!
I mean, you always do, Jamie.
I'm changing all my scores. That was fucking brilliant.
But yeah, I mean, ultimately, like I just don't think that they are thinking in like a realistic way about this, just because of like how traumatized I think all of them are.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of like church fear-based things.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that also, for him being a history teacher, it feels like just because that is what has been, even though like you said, Brian, history repeats itself, it still was his reasoning to kind of go back to that particular like time frame and time period. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to think about their fear, and then in creating something that's also fearful. Like it's just like giving more trauma to your offspring and stuff. I don't know.
Well, there's also like no people of color in this movie, and that's also interesting. And like also being mindful of like choosing certain time periods. I'm just like, what?
For sure. It's always funny when people on social media are like, yeah, if you could go back to any time period, and some people will have discussions, and then it'll be like people of color are like, I cannot go back to that time period.
Like that's not for me.
It's not possible for me.
Yeah. My thought, I wonder,
1940s, what a time to be alive.
Look up to 1920s and be a flapper. What?
Excuse me?
Yeah, that's interesting. The lack of people of color in this, I wonder if that was a specific choice to not feel like it was giving anything away, like a poorly devised choice.
Sure,
if that makes sense.
But it's like that. Like it feels intentional, but it also is like, this is part of the trick, and it's like I don't. That also is like in denial. Like then it's like, okay, well then I'm catering to like these white audiences who like have a hard time conceptualizing that like Black people or people of color have existed in any other time frame, and like that's fucking stupid. I don't know. It's just like another thing where I'm just like, huh?
Right.
Ugh.
So interesting.
I derailed. But fear. Don't try not to make decisions based on fear.
But I mean, I mean, it happens all the time. It happens in theater too. And then like you're forcing characters of different colors to do other things instead of writing new material. Like, it like my least favorite thing is when you're when you're casting somebody in a role that they could never, if you're being accurate to the time, does not make sense with the script that is written, and you're just like just write something new. Don't revive something and try to like wacky dacky do it. Like just
Right.
What's wacky dacky
I don't
do?
know. It just like it's I don't know if that makes sense at all, but I was
Well, that just made me think about the TikTok I saw this morning that was like I think it literally was like when theaters talk about like land acknowledgements, it's like so funny to me.
Yes.
Because they're like, we acknowledge that like even in New York City that like this land previously belonged to the Lenape people, and like we are recognizing that like, you know, colonizers have come and taken this land, and like that's where we are today right now here in this space. And it's like, and now a presentation featuring like 3 Nepo babies performing to a theater filled with like 500 landlords and a couple of theater nerds for tickets costing $250. And it's like they're so unserious about like these acknowledgments when like that's also the reality of what's happening.
Absolutely. I think that totally ties into what
really
you're saying, Brian, of like the wacky dacky of it all.
But
great.
But yeah, fear.
But yeah.
Fear. Fantastic.
But fear.
Nikisha, do you have another question or run?
Yeah. Or well, I mean, you kind of answered it. Yeah, you answered it. These are great. So we can move on to
because you asked like 2 questions, and I might have only answered one of them in your question the first part,
I just wanted to ask, like, can you speak to how harmful it can be when you have this fear-based protection, like how it can impact children, but not only children, just so it might impact people. Sorry, my brain also just like froze. How fear-based protection can impact people and make them kind of fear just doing anything, going out in the world at all, especially like with these kids growing up in this village.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that it's very palpable if an adult is like feeling this way, and like that kids pick up on things. And so if they're seeing the way that like older people are reacting, then I think it's also going to like impact how they're going to respond. But like, yeah, I mean, I think that it can feel really isolating. I think that it can potentially like get in the way of people experiencing certain things. You know, because it's like, I need to like avoid this thing. This thing is bad. I've been told this thing is bad, so like I can't go near this thing. Or like whatever it is. But like, I think that part of what makes like Bryce Dallas Howard's character interesting in this movie is kind of her like I'm not saying she's a pick-me, because I don't think she's got some pick-me qualities, but
Oh,
you're muted, Brian.
Oh, sorry, I don't know that term.
Pick me? Oh, so I think that it originates from Grey's Anatomy, which I've never actually seen.
I've like a pick me.
Pick me, choose me, love me.
Yeah.
Yes, that
okay.
Line. But it's turned into this whole like,
I didn't
persona, like a type of person, typically like a woman, who presents in a certain way in an attempt to like be chosen by a partner.
Like Julie, like I'm just a girl standing in front of a guy, like that type of a thing.
Yeah, but I think Grey's Anatomy even more so is like I mean, that whole speech is like where that originates from. But like it's like very much like but only because like the thing of like, you run like a boy, and she's like, thank you, where it's like, I'm not like other girls kind of vibe,
which I hate that phrase. I'm not like other girls.
Yeah, like shut up. Like also like 1,000 million other people also say that same fucking line, so like you're actually not that original. You're just like all those other girls that say they're not like other girls. So suck on that.
I'm surprised her name wasn't like a boy name, you know, like where they're like to like it's
like Bryce or Dallas or Howard. Like
Wow.
her actual name.
Yeah, honestly.
It's
Because I feel like
crazy
that's
unisex.
that's
yeah.
such lazy shorthand for like our girl is tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just
That was
I
amazing.
That was amazing.
no, but yeah, that is her name. But yeah, like I think I think that that's why her character is so refreshing in this, because like she's less fearful of these things. She
For
wants
sure.
opportunities to like be brave. That's kind of where it's like, does it feel like it's like I'm not like that's why Joaquin Phoenix likes me and not my sister. Like she's not doing
Mhm.
that, but like that's kind of the vibe that I get from this movie of just like
definitely. That's a really
you know,
good point.
so that it's like kind of nice, but also like again in this like contemporary like pick me world that we live in now, it's like but
I was like, pygmy?
yeah,
What?
the pygmies.
Learn something new every day.
So I mean, I think that there's still like space for people to be independent and like push against that fear, and I think that she has a really good dynamic with her father in him fostering that in her despite his fear,
Mhm.
because it's clear that like there's still some resistance with some of the other elders, and potentially even like Sigourney Weaver's like seems even though she gets caught off guard in all these meetings, like she's never like, you know, son, you need to stop doing this, or like she's not like harsh in or like punishing him
No,
for all of these things.
She's like, tell me more how he likes me.
Yeah.
Right. What do you
That
mean?
whole scene is also really weird.
Yeah, like
I
that
don't like
scene,
it.
We could have cut all of that and it would have made no difference on the movie. I think we already know that these elders are like, anyway, sorry.
Yes.
They're weirdos. Yeah, I don't know. I have nothing else to offer here.
No, that's great. This is all fantastic. Amazing. So should we Rotten Tomatoes?
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Let's Rotten
Rotten
Tomatoes.
Tomatin.
I am very excited to see what you think. All right, what do you think this has on Rotten Tomatoes? Jamie, why don't you go first?
63.
All right, Nikisha?
55.
This has a 44% on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience score is 57%.
Interesting.
Critic consensus is The Village is appropriately creepy, but Shyamalan's signature twist ending disappoints.
Oh.
I actually don't agree with that, because I think there's more wrong with the movie than the twist.
Wild.
Yeah. Okay. And then on The Village, on Letterboxd, what do you think it has? Again, as a reminder, it's out of 5. Nikisha, you go first for this one.
I'm going to say 2.6.
All right. And Jamie?
2.9.
It has a 3.3, actually.
Whoa.
It
Fancy.
seems like people like it more here.
Okay.
Yeah, people really, a lot of the reviews from like my friends basically say like my friends, they really come around to this movie. Like someone said, it took me 20 years to come around on this movie. It's beautifully shot with great score and performances. Most people are not impressed with the handling of the twist. Yeah, someone said, of course this movie's twist wasn't going to work forever, but that's the whole point. It's critical in a way of itself in a way that feels intentional. I think those are interesting. So there's some long ones in here that aren't that good. But the best popular review of this one is, this is me and my friends on our little Minecraft server.
Oh.
What?
I can't.
Interesting.
Yikes. Okay.
Cool. All right. Should we do the 4 S's?
Yes.
Skull, stare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horror's 4S's.
All right, Jamie, why don't you start us off with the 4S's? They are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. 1 through 10. Skulls is about human behavior and mental health. Scares is how scary was it. Shakes is how much is this going to stick with you? Can you shake it off? And then we'll get into our suggestions. So hit us, Jamie.
For skulls, I gave this a 3 because I just don't think that this would be the response. Even like thinking about this in our current world where you know everything has really gone to shit
Yeah.
for the most part, and like even like in peak COVID lockdown, like yes, a lot of people did like leave cities, but nobody like left to start their own like world. I mean, some people
Yes.
I'm sure like, started family communes. Like I think that's real, but like I mean like they made their own world. Like
And separated from
created,
society completely.
they might have separated from society, but they didn't like create a new language and pretend like they're not in
No,
contemporary times. Like this is
Sure.
like, it just like takes it to such a weird extreme that I'm like,
Mhm.
there's no fucking way that anyone would do that. Again, isolate yourself, totally. I would believe that way more. But like you had to create a language and pay off the plain people and the government, and like why did you do any of that? Like it just
Right.
doesn't make sense to me. So I just don't think people would do that.
Fair.
And then the idea of creating this weird porcupine monster to like keep the people there, again, what are you doing? I
Yeah.
don't think anybody
Who
would
was
do
their
that.
costumer? Not the movie, but the characters in the movie.
Like
Before
who
they
made
left
the porcupine
the
costume?
real world, we're
Yeah.
like, okay, listen. First, I need like a really scary porcupine monster.
Yeah,
move
like
to
why
the
did they
woods.
decide? Who decided that that was the thing?
I don't know.
Ay, ay, ay. For
Mhm.
scares, I gave it a 2, and I gave it a 2 because when I first watched this movie, I was very, very scared. And I remember like being like extremely fearful, especially the scene where the monster is like on the prowl, and Bryce Dallas Howard has her hand at the door, and she's like, no, Joaquin Phoenix is gonna come, and then he
Mhm.
comes really fast as the monster is coming. That scene scared the shit out of me when I was younger.
Sure.
And I remember that. This time it did not, but I have to give it some credit for having that impact on a first watch. So I
Mhm,
gave
for
it a
sure.
2.
Totally.
For shakes, I'm giving this a 3 because even though I remembered everything that happened in this movie, in the grand scheme of like M. Night's full filmography, this doesn't really leave that big of an impact on me personally. That was how I kind of gave my framing. I think that there's the projects that he has before this are so much better. And then even later, like we just did The Visit, I think about The Visit more than I think about The Village, if that says anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, this just doesn't really do it for me. So it just kind of like doesn't really stick around and resonate as often.
That's fair.
For sure. I
Totally.
get that.
Nikisha.
Yeah, my scores are very similar. Skulls, I also gave it a 3 because what are y'all doing? And for scares, I gave it a 1. I didn't think it was scary, but I did enjoy that scene that Jamie you just talked about. I thought that was filmed really well. And then for shakes, I gave it a 4 because I did like this more than Signs. Like if I had to pick between the two, I would absolutely watch The Village over Signs. So yeah.
I gave this a 4 for skulls. I gave this a 1 for scares, and I gave this a 5.5 for shakes. Even though I do like it, I actually based it very similarly to what Jamie did in terms of like, if I'm going to tell people to watch M. Night Shyamalan movies, this might be in the top 5 I tell you to watch, but like, or maybe top 6, but like, I don't know, like I'm much more likely to tell you to watch Sixth Sense, Signs, then I would probably say like, Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, maybe this, definitely The Visit. I don't know. The Happening, because you just got to see the worst one, and Anyway, yeah. I already gave my suggestion. It's Dogtooth. If you want a fucked up version of this, like watch Dogtooth.
That's a good one.
Jamie?
This gives off some big ol' Vivitch vibes. Uh-oh.
Jamie.
I'm just ruining everyone's suggestions. I'm just gonna leave.
No, don't leave. Never.
I can't even roll away.
But yeah,
Sorry.
that's
I'm
what I
sorry.
had. The VVHs.
Vivitch.
Yeah.
Cool. Also, another. We're probably gonna do it on the podcast, but another Woods movie, The Relic. I think.
Oh,
if
yeah, I
you
haven't
like
seen
this,
that one.
you would like The Relic.
Fantastic. Well, I think that wraps up our episode of The Village. You can follow us on all social medias, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, at Talk Horror Pod. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
You can actually listen to us wherever you get podcasts. I know it's fucking crazy. You can get us on the internet. It's called YouTube. Ever heard of it?
What?
So check
Yeah,
out
you did.
YouTube and find us there at Talk Horror Pod. And if you're already on YouTube, hello, thanks for listening. According to
Watching.
the
Thanks for watching.
thanks for watching. Oh yeah, right. According to the statistics, a lot of people don't make it to the end, but if you do, thanks. We appreciate
Here's a
it.
kiss.
And and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and stuff like that. Rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And thank you.
Woo!
Right. How should we close this off?
You run like a girl. Thank you.
Because you know what? I'm not like other girls.
I'm not like other girls. My name is
other
Bryce.
girls. Dallas.
My name is Dallas. I'm Howard.
Fantastic. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.
Bye.